How are you? So, Lightfall is out, and I just wanted to talk about a couple of things that everybody seems to be kind of going crazy over. I do have a list here. One of those things is definitely the campaign, and I just kind of want to touch on that real quick because it seems to be the most negative thing that people are talking about. But I also want to touch up on some things regarding the campaign that I feel like a bunch of people may have forgotten along the way. I mean, this is setup, but there was setup before the setup before the setup, which is kind of one of Bungie's problems. But there's a lot of things that sort of can be explained and allow some of that negative nuance to be brushed off a little bit. I feel like if we just took the time to look back a little further and pay attention to some of the more finer details, to say the least. So sometimes when we as a people are engaged with a long lasting piece of media, we tend to forget some things down the line. And while we may remember the moment that makes us go, wow, or this is amazing, or I can't wait to see something like that again, basically, we have to remember that those things are meant to do just that. We often leave the details that play a huge roles in those moments, kind of to the wayside. It's kind of forgotten about. All of the things that lead up to the wow or amazing moments, or little things that happen in the wow or amazing moments that we may not pay attention to because there's a big explosion going on in the background. I just kind of want to throw that out there. We kind of forget that all of those things happen all together to give us those moments. And when writing a story, or in this case a series like Destiny, a long-lasting series, is hard to write in every detail and plot point and make it all cohesive enough to the main plot as it continues so that everything makes sense. That being said, I feel like Destiny's done a pretty decent, pretty amazing job of not allowing too many plot holes to form and give us a cohesive story throughout the 8-10 years or whatever that we've had Destiny here. I want to point out that keeping the main plot and everything cohesive like this isn't an easy thing to do. It's not something that many people really accomplish as writers, where we as writers, and by we I mean humans, or we as writers sort of really succeed at is having a vision, and Destiny is definitely a vision. I also want to point that out. It's easy to know your story, where it ends, where it begins, and where your plot twist may or may not happen. I feel like that's a great way of saying it. Yeah, I feel like that's a great way of saying it. But a lot of people are not good about the where, the how, and the why. For all intents and purposes, and specifically at this level of thought that I've explained, I wanted to talk about this Lightfall expansion. So, a couple things. The story isn't bad. I don't want to say that it's bad. And the reason why I don't want to say that it's bad is because thought was put into it. And I don't want to take away from the writers of Destiny that have obviously taken the time to make these beautiful cutscenes, create this dialogue, and then insert these new characters into the storyline to try and give us something else to focus on, to make it seem like it's not just us here at the tower or dealing with the Traveler or even the Cabal or anybody that's at Earth right now. I think they tried to make it seem like it's not just us that we're putting our stakes into. You know what I'm saying? Like the universe is bigger than just the Guardians and what's going on in our solar system, so to speak. Although adding Neptune kind of debunks that. But I just wanted to point out that, we thought it was just us, and it's not just us. Which raises the stakes even higher. And if you understand that, and if you understand the emotion and thought that was put into that, then I feel like the introduction of the Cloud Striders, albeit given their very short history in the game, allows you to experience, at least as a player, that, hey, it's more than just us on the front line now. And that should raise the stakes for you a little bit. It doesn't make you care about the Cloud Striders or anybody else any further than you already do, because we spend very little time with them, especially Rohan. We'll get to that in a moment. But it also brings into context that as intelligent and as wide as our information network expands, it really shows that as much as we know, we still know little to nothing. And I think that's kind of the point of this campaign. The stakes are high, but why are they high? We're here to protect the Traveler, but why are we protecting the Traveler? Why do we fear the darkness so much, even though it's helped us a great amount throughout our history as a Guardian? That's just something I really want to put into perspective, that I feel like nobody's really thinking about. That being said, storytelling is important. Pacing is very important. We start the game, and this is the start of the game. I have the footage in the background is I went through the campaign and kind of did a mini speed run ish type thing. I didn't really care to stop for too much extra. Here we are. I should have said that at the beginning, but it is what it is. Hold up, let me grab my train of thought here. Where was I? I don't know. We'll get back to it. Right. So, where I left off was, forgive my brain, pacing is very important. We start at the beginning of the game. It kind of throws you right into the action. We spawn upon this Cabal ship that we have to go through, chasing Osiris and making sure that we get to the planet the same time as Callus and the Darkness Fleet does, in order to sort of hold the line. We do that. We meet the Cloud Striders first thing. They're like, hey, who are you? You seem good. Join us. And then that's kind of it for the beginning. We see Strand somehow hovering in the field, and we're like, oh, we should trust this energy, and we reach out to it, and we have Strand. A lot of people, and this is kind of where like my first point of contention is with people's complaints, a lot of people are like, oh, where did Strand appear from? Well, where did Stasis appear from? You know, we know it was a gift from the darkness, and Aramis just kind of had it. It's stated that she was gifted to it by the darkness, but what did that really mean? You know, it's kind of just a byproduct of whatever's there. That being said, Strand is there. It's hovering there. We detect the anomaly before we even reach there. I would like to point this out. Please pay attention to what the ghost says at that point, that he's detecting a strange energy. And he doesn't even make the suggestion that you should reach out to it. Actually, he does. He makes the suggestion that you should reach out to it. And you do. And it turns out to be this energy that you can absorb into yourself. I also want to point out that this isn't strange, as in, I believe, a strike with Ashamir. He does hypothesize, and you kind of prove his hypothesis, that your Guardian is able to absorb energies in a way that other Guardians are not able to. They sort of move freely and flow through you incredibly easy, and I think that's because of our Guardians' open mind to things. We're not very hesitant to step out and do something new or attract something new, something that gives us more power so that we're able to complete the task at hand. That's kind of what our Guardian is, the person that gets it done. Point blank, period. And I think our bodies just respond to that in some type of way. Moreover, the questions about the Tormentors. Where did the Tormentors come from? They are obviously not necessarily disciples, but foot soldiers of the darkness. Probably from one of the many races that the disciple has, not the disciple, the witness has come across over time, and maybe their bodies were transformed and contorted by the darkness. Maybe they were Cabal that were given some type of darkness energy that contorted and twisted their bodies. Who knows? The point is that they are a gift from the witness. We don't need any explanation for that, other than we know that Callus is a disciple, and for that reason he has specific perks. Why was Callus made a disciple? Well, I mean, even during the season of opulence, it's teased to that he saw something out in the darkness and chased it. He listened to it. Whatever called him out into the deeper reaches of space, he went and chased it down to meet it, to greet it, to say hi. And he alludes very ominously to what that darkness can give you and how it could change you. And he doesn't really warn against it. He kind of just says, I'll give you loot. Fight because we need a better opponent for what's coming. And he kind of prepares you for that in that way. It's not really a mystery why Callus was made a disciple of the darkness. He owned an empire. He was king of the Cabal or whatever. He commanded great armies. He was a conqueror. And although he had no much interest in conquering, he still did his job as, Cabal leader. That was taken away from him by his daughter and a couple of other members of the Council of all people. And that probably made him very bitter and angry and probably made him feel a lot of pain. Not because that his daughter did anything, but because he lost the empire that granted him the opulence that he so wanted and deserved. At least in his mind. We find that the darkness is sort of a paracausal trans network in which it feels emotion and thought, and it feels the pain of others. It feels kind of like a connection through, I'm trying to figure out the best way to say it. It's kind of a connection of a spirituality versus the very physical nature of the traveler, which is sort of explained by Osiris, albeit not very well, but it is explained by Osiris that this is kind of what the darkness is, and he can tap into those rather metaphysical things that the traveler cannot. And so Callus becoming a disciple of the witness, as powerful as Callus already was, seems like a very logical step for the witness to take advantage of. He's still regarded as a leader of the people. People still defect to Callus's way of thinking. If Callus ever stepped back into the fray from his very long and arduous journey through space, it would make sense that, the Cabal would flock to his side, if anything, given Keitel's recent fumble of losing Terabatl, which truly isn't her fault. But, the Cabal may see it that way. We're conquerors, and under Callus's rule, this would have never happened. This is a people torn between three leaderships that have already transpired, and one of them lost the planet. Just want to point this out. No, it's really not that. It's really not that complicated to understand why Callus was chosen as a disciple. We'll talk about the Veil a little bit more. I want to talk about the Cloud Striders. The Cloud Striders, and this is just back-to-back information because I feel like I have a lot to talk about and not a lot of time to talk about it. Are the Cloud Striders badly written? No. Do I feel for the Cloud Striders like the devs wanted me to? No. Let's take Rohan, for example. Rohan isn't a badly written character. He's a man of few words in the campaign, but if he was given a little bit more time to shine or a little bit more time to interact with the Guardian and converse, I feel like he would have been a great source of wisdom aside from Osiris, and a great mentor to us had he been allowed to live longer. Yes, we expected him to die when he said, I don't have that much longer to live. Whatever, I'm not going to gripe about that. We have to remember that we came onto Neptune some years into whatever the planet's history. They have a history aside from ours, And they cannot take time away from the main story, what's going on with us, to get into the history of the Cloud Striders right off the back. It feels very wrong to be mad about that, knowing that we have something more immediate going on. If you wanted to get to know the characters a little bit more or whatever, I'm sorry, this is war. You meet people, they die. And you don't have time to feel about them. And that's kind of the thought process I got behind Rohan dying. Not, oh, we need to feel bad, but hey, he's just another casualty of war, and we sort of have to push past that. And the characters that do have a history with him obviously feel for him in some way, and vicariously through him, we can sort of understand the pain that the planet is feeling via the Cloud arc over Rohan's lost. It's not meant for us to feel anything. It's meant for the characters around us to feel something and develop. Has nothing to do with us as the viewer, as the Guardian, or anything like that. I really want to point that out. If you're thinking that, hey, we're going to kill this character off and we're going to make you feel about it was their goal, I don't think that was Bungie's goal. And we just need to get over ourselves in that regard. They have a story to tell, and they can't cater to us in every form or fashion. The point was to develop Nimbus as a character. With Rohan around, he still would have been the same wacky, dunkable person that he was being, and he needed something to give him a kick in the ass and to push himself over to the front lines and make better decisions. Now, is Nimbus written bad? No. Nimbus is a very young Cloud Strider with a relatively nuanced way relatively nuanced way of dealing with things. He's in the face of danger. He makes jokes. His planet's under siege. He does something to keep his mind focused. If that's to talk about something in a very casual way, that's fine. I'm actually the same way as a person, which is why I don't mind the way that Nimbus is written. You guys might think it's cringe, but this is the way some people actually deal with things. To jump into action, to make jokes, and to continue on without allowing those losses to bother you as someone so young and into combat like this is a reasonable way to look at things. With Rohan gone, he does have serious moments where he's like, hey, there's some comfort knowing that somebody else is holding the mantle. It allows you to goof off. It allows you to take things not as seriously. And now at Rohan gone, he has to kind of deal with that. And it's more important to understand the development of Nimbus that Bungie is going through right now than to look at him as just a cringe character who takes everything as a joke. He doesn't. The cutscene where he's flying in on his sword and we're standing in a circle just before the montage of us understanding Strand, it may seem like it's kind of out of place, but it's not. You guys just came off of a huge victory, and he's hyped to get some things done and protect his planet. He's a great morale booster, and instead of looking at it like that, a lot of people tend to just be like, oh, well, he's written bad, it's kind of cringe. It's not. That's exactly what's needed in moments like that. And I just wanted to focus and touch on that a little bit. I don't think they're badly written. I don't think the conversations are out of context and out of place. Some of the lines are weird. The pew pew ka-chow thing is a little odd. He's not a 4-year-old, but at the same time, he's also, as much as he is human, he's not. He's Neptunian. The way they talk and the way they understand things is probably a lot different from how we do, and I also really want to keep that in mind. It's tough. It's tough to understand. I'm going to take a sip of my essential water. Please just give me a moment. I will all right. It's just good to keep some of those things in mind. When you're writing a story, you have to think about these things, and sometimes you're not thinking about the consumer, but more so about how you're going to develop your story and how important this person will be to your story later on. So you need a plot point of sorts to go ahead and develop them, because they will play a huge role in the final shape. Otherwise, why introduce Neptune into this at all? Cloud Striders are a powerful ally, and I feel like they can be very interesting. And throughout the season, or seasons, I feel like we'll learn more about them, their history, and how they can help us as a species. Couple more things. Is Bungie's writing team bad? No. Bungie's writing team isn't bad. I'll tell you what Bungie's writing team problem is, and I've kind of touched on it earlier at the very beginning. It's having vision. They know exactly what the story is, where they want it to go, but they don't necessarily know how or why they're going to get there. At this point, the final bits of the story are being written up as we speak, or probably have been written entirely. I cannot tell you which one it is, but it is very difficult to have an end in mind and build up to that end without any idea of what the journey between is going to be. Also keeping that in mind, that the writing that they probably have in their scripts and books will not properly reflect in the video game, because they have to edit in those cutscenes and everything and figure out which bits of dialogue and actioning sequence can best translate into, hey, we need this in our video game. We need to visualize it. We need to show it. I don't think they're written bad. I think that some of the decisions made at the top about specific details being kept hidden in secret are kind of what hurts the story. Because if you read any of the books, none of them are bad. If you read the lore is well written. If you read even the stuff for the previous campaign's main missions, they're way better than actually playing the game themselves. But this is if you care about lore. And I know a lot of Destiny players don't necessarily care about lore. They just care about pew pew ka-chow, basically. Me make things blow up. I like space magic. It just kind of is what it is. What did we forget? A lot. We forget a lot. And I kind of touched on that a little bit earlier during the Season of Opulence, where he's kind of training you up to be a better fighter against forces that you possibly can't comprehend. And there's more little things like that we kind of forget about as the story continues, hints as to what the veil is and whatnot. And that kind of brings me to my next point. What is the veil? While I do not have an exact description as to what the veil is, we can sort of categorize it as something between. The veil has the ability to bring together the light and darkness as one thing. It does not mean that the traveler is dead, and it does not mean that the witness is gone, but instead existing in the same space altogether, thus getting rid of the pain and making the final shape. Instead of the two being separate, the two being combined and allowing each other to exist without the fight of light and darkness, I believe is what the final shape is supposed to be. Lightfall doesn't necessarily mean that we're losing our light, which is kind of evident by what is going on here, but instead the conjoining of light and darkness and allowing this forever struggle to finally come to an end. I believe that's what the veil is. This is a physical space, not a representation, but a physical space that allows this specific line of thinking to happen. This is further supported by the fact that the Cloud Arc is a space that links the hearts and minds of the people of Neomuna, keeping them safe from the treacheries of light and dark as separate entities in the ongoing war that pervades around them. What is currently happening? Plot holes, or do we already have answers? Unfortunately, I'm going to have to make that another video because that is a whole separate topic of conversation. I feel like we can have. I just need to write, I feel like, a pseudo script in order to get that done. But that being said, I want to say thank you for watching. Thank you for sailing on these rather rough Crimson waters with me. And I hope throughout all of my talking, which I feel like I really talked about nothing, but it kind of is what it is. I hope through all of that you kind of understand where my point of view is, and just a little bit of why I don't think the campaign is as bad as people think it is. There's a lot of focus on story here, and sort of the plot holes and the things that people mostly complained about. I just kind of wanted not to not to have a counter argument to them, but to kind of put into perspective a little bit more than what's right in front of them. It's never about what's right in front of you. How is never as important as why, and here is never as important as when. Those are just really important things to keep in mind. I do want to talk about gameplay. Strand feels amazing. Strand feels absolutely amazing. It doesn't feel underwhelming. It's incredibly powerful. I have 3 different builds for my Warlock under works right now that make Strand an absolute blast. My grenades consistently come back every, I want to say, 8 to 10 seconds. The little Strand missiles, I can't remember the name of them right now, and your melee slot for the Warlock are great, extremely powerful, and your Rift already comes with the built-in ability via your aspects, which is wonderful. It is a great way to stack up damage. And that being said, gaining grenade energy just from dealing damage from any source is totally broken. I mean, super broken. If you can get multiple sources of damage going out at the same time, your grenade comes back instantly. And this can constantly be recharged if you know how to recharge your abilities. You want to pop your Rift. There's something that allows your Rift to generate grenade energy, and when your grenades are down, if you use your grenade, you get grenade energy back when your grenade energy is depleted. So you're constantly throwing grenades, constantly popping Rift. You can get your melee abilities back from having absolutely no abilities in your slots. So you're always going to be generating melee, and when you're damaging enemies with your melee, which is incredibly important because it does DOT, damage over time, you're going to constantly get your grenade back, and it all just sort of plays off of each other. And not to mention, all of that damage works well with the new way that supers work. It is no longer about how many enemies you kill, but how much damage ticks you can put out there in order for your super to be restored. Every damage tick restores your super in some form or capacity, and I also want to point that out. Not only that, but killing enemies also does restore your super as well. Pairing this with bad juju or any other weapon or exotic that allows you to restore your supers is great. So keep in mind about that out there. I know a lot of people were complaining about build diversity. We don't have all of the mods yet unlocked, and more will be added into the game as Bungie moves forward through the season. So I'm not too concerned about build diversity. I feel like we have a lot of it as it is, and I also wanted to point that out. I won't touch up too much here on that. Instead, I'm going to let this final moment play out, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.